Hello again and welcome to another Morty and Glory Old World video. In today's episode, we shall be casting our ever critical eye over another Old World unit. And this time, we're going over to the Empire of Man. But rather than looking at some infantry, and you guys know I love my infantry, I thought I'd try out this newfangled idea of cavalry. That's right, it's time to take a little gander at the Empire Knights. And I don't mean to alarm anyone, but Empire Knights look good. They look damn good. In fact, they look so good, I'm going to come out with a classic, bold, controversial Morty and Glory take. I'm going to say that Empire Knights give Bretonnia a run for their money. That's the faction that is literally all about knights. And in some areas, it could be argued that not only can they match Bretonnian knights, but also beat them. A strong statement indeed. And I'm going to need to back that up. So you know what? Without further ado, let's mount up and charge right into today's episode. Let us begin with an overview of the Empire Knights themselves, and then we can compare them to the Bretonnians a little bit later on in the video. The Knights stat line is pretty impressive by Empire standards. We've got a weapon skill of 4, ballistic skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 3, 1 attack, and 8. You compare that to an Empire state troop, or pretty much any of the Empire infantry outside of veterans or greatswords, that is an increased weapon skill and, more importantly in a game like Old World, increased leadership. Each knight is on a barded warhorse, which gives them a movement of 7, as well as an additional weapon skill 3, strength 3, initiative 3, attack. Essentially, the barded warhorse gets to kick you in the head with its iron-shod hooves. Each knight and his horse, the cost is combined, is going to cost 21 points. You don't have to pay for the horse separately or anything like that. They're heavy cavalry. Their base size is 30 by 60. Their unit size is 4+, which is kind of cool. Most cavalry units have to be 5+. And each knight comes equipped with a hand weapon, heavy armor, and shield. And each warhorse comes equipped with iron-shod hooves, which count as a hand weapon, and barding. We then get to the weapon options. Now, the entire unit must take one of the following: great weapons or lances. Both are going to cost you 1 point per model. Or you can sack off your shield so you'll just have heavy armor, and that allows you to take great weapons for the low price free. I feel like most people will naturally gravitate towards the lance for a couple of reasons. Firstly, they look badass. It's the iconic weapon of the knights. A whole line of them, lances lower, driving the enemy before them. It's cool, right? But also I think lances are quite a good weapon for knights because they allow you to try and break people on the charge. They give you +2 strength and they also give you -2 AP without impacting your initiative. So if you're going against someone which might have initiative 4, initiative 5, you really want those lances because it means you can actually strike first. If you go for great weapons, you will have +2 strength and -2 AP all the time, but you will have strike last, which means when you charge, you'll be at initiative 4. Now, in a lot of situations, initiative 4 will be enough to get the job done. But in many other situations, you're going to come across someone else who's initiative 4. And striking at the same time is not ideal. When you're an Empire Knight, you want to get the first hits in, cut down the enemy rank, and hope that that stops any real damage coming back at you. And the reason doing that is so important as an Empire Knight is because fundamentally you're a toughness 3, 1 wound bloke. So you can't really take much of a hit back. You're fairly well armored by Empire standards. If you've got a lance and a shield and heavy armor and barding, you are going to be on a 3-up save, which is pretty good. But if you don't cut the enemy down and they start hitting back, your guys are going to start toppling from saddles very quick. You're not like orcs who can rely on an 8 toughness 4, or you're not Chaos Knights which can rely upon just being hard as nails, toughness 4 with probably a 2-up save if they're chosen. Empire Knights need to break people, cut the enemy down, and make sure that they're taking little, the enemy has little opportunity to strike back. But here's the thing. Don't dismiss the great weapons. I have sneaking suspicion that they will actually be a bit of a hidden gem, a bit of a sneaky meta choice for your knights. Firstly, you're more than likely going to get the charge off, which means you're going to be at initiative 4 time, and that means you're probably still going to get to swing before the end. Most battle line stuff you're going to be charging down is going to be initiative 3. You want to use your Empire Knights to really be bullying enemy infantry in the flanks or breaking skirmishers on the sides and all this kind of stuff. That's where you want to be using them. Your knights don't necessarily want to be charging down the middle. Kind of want securing the sides, whilst your infantry blocks, state troops and greatswords are the ones holding the mid. They kind of want to be hitting enemy units that have charged your line and counter charge that. So that means you're likely to be getting flank charge, which means actually you can get up to initiative 5 on the charge with your Empire Knights with great weapons. It's actually pretty tasty. On top of this, they're a bit cheaper. You don't need to spend a point on great weapons. You can take them for free if you're willing to give up a little bit of a defensive stat line. And you will still have a 4-up save, which by old world standards is very respectable. Finally, in a worst case scenario where some infantry charge your cavalry, you still get to be strength 5, AP -2. Unlike lances, where if someone charges you, and you may have spent a point on this weapon, bear that in mind, and you're only going to be hitting like bog standard swordsman, strength 3, AP nothing. So great swords, I would say, are equal to lances, but the thing is, make them a little bit cheaper. Does that make them better overall? I'm not sure. Let me know down in the comment section where you're leaning. Great swords v lances, just looking at Empire Knights sort of in a vacuum. Once you've decided what weapon to give your knight, we then have to decide what kind of command options they're going to have. One knight can be upgraded to a preceptor, which is a champion, for 6 points. You can have a standard bearer, and you can have a musician, which are also 6 points each. Any unit of knights may purchase a magical standard up to 25 points, which is kind of cool. You don't need to make inner circle knights, veteran knights, or anything like that. They can just take a 25-point magical standard. Side note, if you're curious to know what kind of standards you can get for 25 points, you might be surprised to find out that there's a decent selection. Firstly, for 10 points from the Empire of Man magic items, you can take the Banner of Duty. A unit carrying the Banner of Duty may reroll any failed rally test. That's kind of cool. Something could have gone wrong. You might have fled outside of your general's leadership aura, and you might need to have a bit of a reroll going on if you fail that first rally test. Well, with the Banner of Duty and a musician, that would be a leadership 9 rally, rerollable. That's definitely not a bad banner to stick on a unit like Knights, who could easily end up running or fleeing or be operating outside of the general's boosted leadership. You've also got the Gleaming Pennant for 15 points. It's also an Empire magic item, and this is single use. A unit carrying the Gleaming Pennant may reroll a single failed leadership test. This looks great, but note that a break test is not a leadership test. If it was a free reroll on a break test, oh, amazing. Without it, I'm not sure the Gleaming Pennant is totally worth it. Although it is important to note that Old World is very leadership based, so anything that can give you an edge might be useful. You've also got 2 magic standards you can take from the Big Blue Book. You've got the War Banner, which gives you +1 to combat res. So if you had a standard bearer with the War Banner, you're actually getting +2 to your static combat res. Not too shabby at all. And then you've got the crap one, the Blazing Banner. It gives you flaming attacks. Flaming attacks are very niche. Unless you are fighting an abundance of trolls or undead, you're probably not going to need. For my money, if I was looking at putting a magical standard on unit of knights, I would go Banner of Duty, or I would go for the War Banner. You can also give the Preceptor up to 25 points of magical items. Again, there's no limitation here on 0 to 1. This is for every unit of Empire Knights. You can take one of these low-level magic standards or upgrade your Preceptor with some kind of low-level item. I've had a quick glance through some of the magic items you can get 25 points, and I'm really not sure if there's much that's worth putting on the Sergeant. Maybe some kind of potion would make him a bit stronger. You could go for a sword that's going to make him slightly more likely to hit, like the sword of striking, but it doesn't feel like there's much you can get for 25 points. If it was 30 points, it would be amazing, because you could put the Ruby Ring of Ruin. Like we said with the Empire Greatswords, the Ruby Ring's really, really good to put on each unit because it just gives them that extra bit of punch, oomph. But with 25 points, I'm not so certain. Let me know what you would go for on the Preceptor. Would you give him anything, or would you just leave? Finally, we do have some special rules that we can upgrade our Empire Knights with. 0 to 1 unit per 1,000 points may have the Drilled special rule and or have the Stubborn special rule. Now, Drilled is +1 point per model and means that you get a free redress of the ranks before then doing any movement. That could be kind of cool. You could start in marching column, zoom down a flank, and then redress your ranks and start operating or combat formation. Although it does mean that we're not looking to get into melee until turn 3 in that case. Not sure how useful Drilled is on the Empire Knights. Stubborn, on the other hand, is pretty tasty. Being able to get Stubborn means that the first time that you take a leadership test, you can choose to be like, a break test, I should say, you can choose to be like, I'll just fall back in good order. No dramas. At 2 points a model, it does mean that your Empire Knights will go up to 23 points a model if they've got great weapons, or 24 points a model if they've got great weapons and shields, or lances and shields. I do like Stubborn. Again, in a game which is so damn hinged, so damn pivotal on leadership, anything that can make your knights better at sticking around and not breaking and getting run down and giving your opponent loads of victory points is good. I think most people will leave Stubborn at home, but I think if you are only going to go for the 1 unit of knights and you're kind of happy to build them into being a bit of a grind unit, maybe something that's got great weapons, you don't mind if it takes a few rounds of combat, maybe Stubborn would be useful. You could go Stubborn on your great swords, on your Empire Knights, and you could find yourself with an army that's almost entirely Stubborn. Because remember, your Empire Knights are part of your core selection. Sure, only 0 to 1 unit per 1,000 may be Stubborn, but that means you could have 2 of them. And 2 big units of Knights with Stubborn probably get you most of the way on your core requirement. Then you start looking over at great swords, do something similar. You've got a very, very durable front line that's good on the attack and good on the defense. It's expensive, but it's definitely not something you should dismiss out of hand. Last but not least, we have got the special rules. Empire Knights are close order, which will give them +1 static combat res. They've got counter charge, which is bloody brilliant. It means when an enemy cavalry unit charges them, counter charge, move D3 +1 inches forward, and then you also count as charging. And help get you up to the same initiative as the enemy unit that is charging you, helping you strike at the same time. You've then got first charge, which means that you first charge, the first time you charge an enemy unit, they don't get their rank bonus. Very good for breaking big blocks of infantry. And then you have swift stride. Means that your charges are longer, reliable, and you find it easier to cut enemies down as well. First charge and swift stride together is a potent combo. And what I like about Empire Knights being close order is you get your +1 combat res, and then if you've got a standard, maybe even a war banner, you could be up to +3 combat res before you've even struck the enemy. And if you've got 8, 10 in 2 ranks, 4x2 or 5x2, you might even get a rank bonus on top of that as well, giving you 4 combat res, which is what a lot of infantry end up starting with. And then you get to do your kills, and as knights you'll probably be striking first. So it can give you a very big leg up on the break test of the enemy. Now that just about covers the Empire Knights, just looking at them on their own, based off their own merits. And I think they're a really good unit. I think one of the strongest things about them is their core. A lot of the Empire core feels a little lackluster. Your state troops feel a bit overcosted for what they're bringing to the table, especially when you compare them to what other people get for cheaper, even same points cost. Look at those Bretonnian men at arms, look at those Orc boys, and state troops feel a bit, a bit rubbish, really. And then you've got your range stuff where, okay, yeah, your handgunner's really 8 points, but a dwarf handgunner is going to beat you every single time because you've actually got armor and all that kind of stuff. And you've got your free company, which are good, but they're very fragile, and same for your archers. And you finally get to your Empire Knights. It's like, oh, this is something that can actually move quickly, is tough, and can do damage. It's not something the rest of your core really brings to the table. Personally, and after playing about half a dozen games with my Empire, I can't help but feel like I'm inexorably being drawn towards my core being made up of ranged troops and knights. State troops kind of stay at home, and if I want a block of infantry, I'll take some great swords, a bit of artillery, and maybe some demigriffs, which are well. But I promised you more than a simple Empire Knight unit review. Don't worry, I have not gone back on my word. I did make some fairly disparaging remarks about the Bretonnian Knights as well, and I'm going to have to back all of this up now. So let's have a cheeky gander at what kind of knights Bretonnia can call upon. On the lowest rung, we have the Knights Errant. These are your young noble sons, and they're okay as far as knights go, but they're held back by the fact they're only weapon skill 3, which means against a lot of enemy line infantry, they're only hitting on 4s, which does blunt their ability to do damage, kind of makes it hard for them to break enemies, and that's kind of what knights need to do. And also they're a leadership 7 when compared to an Empire Knight, and they are impetuous. And all of those downgrades only save you 2 points, 19 points versus 21 points. To be fair, you could say 3 points because the Empire Knight is going to have to pay for his lance. I think that most people would agree that Empire Knights are probably better than Knights Errant, even with things like Blessing of the Lady and stuff, which we'll get to in a moment. And a lot of Bretonnian players say that Knights Errant are kind of a fun choice, and they're a good way to get cheap knights in there, but really, we need to be looking a level higher. We need to be looking at Mounted Knights of the Realm. This is a totally different kettle of fish. Mounted Knights of the Realm have got the same weapon skill, that higher weapon skill 4, and they're also leadership 8. They're almost identical to the Empire Knights. The advantage they have is their Bretonnian Warhorse does have a 8 versus a 7, but they do cost 24 points per knight, which is, in comparison to an Empire Knight with lances and shields, 2-point increase. You've also got the fact that a minimum size unit of Mounted Knights of the Realm is 5 strong, not 4 strong. Now, you probably do want to take your Knights of the Realm in a 5 strong unit, because maybe even a 6, you probably want a 6 strong unit, really, because you want that lance. But the Empire Knights, you could take them in a little 4-man unit, just sneaking around, doing some flank charges. I think, however you slice it, the realistic minimum size unit of Knights of the Realm is going to be 6, and the minimum realistic unit of Empire Knights is probably going to be 4 or 5. There are again some significant point savings there. Finally, you had the fact that the unit upgrades of First Knight, Standard Bearer, and Musician are a little bit pricier for the Knights of the Realm. It's only a little bit. 7 points per one rather than 6 points per one. But again, there's all these little points here, little points there. Like, I've got to spend 2 points more per knight. I've got to spend 1 point more per command. I've got to take 5 to 6 guys rather than really sort of 4 to 5 guys. You're probably looking at, per unit of knights, probably about a 40-ish point difference just off the top of my head. And if you're taking multiple bricks of knights and comparing them to multiple units of Empire Knights, that's going to start adding up to proper points that get you more than an extra man here and there, and we're looking at potentially an upgraded character, or even a whole new unit. However, you do get what you pay for, and there's a reason why mounted knights of the realm are expensive. They have a crap load of special rules. Firstly, they've got Blessing of the Lady, which gives them a 6+ ward save, or 5+ ward save against attacks which are strength 5 or higher. Also close order and counter charge. They've got fast war horses, which gives them rerolls on the moves and stuff. And they've got first charge and lance formation and swift stride and knight's vow. Most of these special rules are going to make them a little bit faster and also a little bit tougher than your knights. Here's the thing. You've both got exactly the same damage output. You're both weapon skill 4. You're both going to be strength 5, 8 -2 with the lances. You're both going to be leadership 8. So in terms of damage output, in terms of just looking at how you effectively and efficiently you can hurt your opponent, Empire Knights can do that cheaper than Knights of the Realm. And it's significant to note that you have to give up first turn as Bretonnia in order to get the Blessing of the Lady. If you're facing off against Empire and you're doing that, that's fine. But it's probably going to give the Empire guy more turns, more opportunities to shoot the crap out of you. With things like his Hellblaster volley guns and his handgunners and all that kind of stuff. You want to give up first turn against a gunline army, be my guest is what I say. On top of that, the points that you save with Empire Knights might allow you to get an extra chaff unit or two, which would force the Bretonnian Knight player to waste their first charge on something rubbish. We could go back and forth on Empire Knights versus Knights of the Realm, I think, all day, arguing which one's got what advantage and what disadvantage. I think if we just summarize it, Empire Knights are cheaper and have the same damage output. Bretonnian Knights are tougher and also faster. I think if you take all of this into account, they're probably going to come out fairly equals. The funny thing is, and maybe it's just me, but I feel like Empire Knights being able to go toe-to-toe with Bretonnian Knights is kind of an L for the Bretonnians, because their whole thing is cavalry, right? The whole thing is being good with horses. So if Empire are able to match them in that and then also have their own advantages, such as guns, I don't know. It feels kind of like a W for the Empire, maybe kind of an L for the Bretonnia, but I'm happy to split the diff and say it's a draw. Where things get real spicy and where we could have a big debate is with questing knight. These are a special choice for the Bretonnians, and they are knights with great weapons. Now they have weapon skill 5 and they are innately strength 4. Two big pluses over your Empire Knight. They also have the questing vow, which allows them to re-roll fear heritage. Pretty big in a game about leadership, being able to do that. Tasty. Here's the thing. They're 5 points more than Empire Knight. Great weapon. And that's going to add up very quickly. And the amount of damage output you're getting for the extra 5 points, I'm not sure justifies the cost. When you're swinging your Empire Knights or your Questing Knights into some kind of enemy line unit, like an infantry, probably going to be winning on 3s either way. You're attacking something standard like weapon skill 3, which most enemy infantry tends to be, unless you start getting into the special stuff. Again, weapon skill 4, weapon skill 5, you're still hitting on 3s. Strength 6 for strength 5, you're probably going to be wounding on 2s either way. To be fair, Questing Knights would have an advantage into things like Orcs, which are toughness 4, and also if you start going into some mid-level monsters like Trolls, they're toughness 4 as well. Questing Knights would be wounding those on 2s, and your Empire Knights would only be wounding them on 3s. You're still wounding them more often than not, right? When you think about the whole questing vow thing and getting reroll leadership tests and stuff, that is good. But you do have that banner for the Empire Knights. It was only 15 points that let you get a test as well. That lets you emulate it. And it's cheaper. It's only 15 points. It wasn't that expensive at all. And that's comparing Questing Knights to Empire Knights with great weapons, but interestingly, the Empire Knights would have a big advantage over the Questing Knights if they had lances, because the lances will give them the initiative bonus. If you've got Empire Knights charging questing knights, both going to be striking last, and the Empire Knights will get +3 to their initiative, but then the questing knights would countercharge, and that means they'd probably end up, they counters charging and they go D3 +1 inches forward, so that would be +3. So both sides would strike initiative 4 as far as I can understand it. But Empire Knights with lances will be striking an initiative 6. And yeah, those knights are going to cost 1 point Empire side, but still going to be 4 points cheaper per knight in comparison to the questing knights. And you are more than likely going to blunt the lands. You're going to pitch a few of those questing knights from the saddle before they get a chance to strike you back. I'm not the best at Math Hammer, but just doing a quick bit of napkin Math Hammer here, you can get about 7 Empire Knights with lances and full command for just slightly less than 6 questing knights with command. It's about 5 or 6 points cheaper on the Empire side. Now that is going to give you a total of 8 attacks with Empire Knights. You're going to hit with 4 of them, and then they are going to wound with all of them. And 5 is 3. Questing Knights won't get an armor save because, so they'll get a 6 up, so I don't think they're going to stop that there, but they will get a ward save which might stop 1. Even if we generally say it stops 2, still going to lose 2 questing knights. And then you're going to have the Empire horses, which are going to be getting additional 7 attacks. They're also going to be hitting on 4s. You'll be wounding on 4. So you're going to have, let's say, 4 hits, but then 2 wounds. That kills another questing knight because they're only on a save. So your Empire Knights kill 3 of the questing knights before questing knights get a chance to strike. Even if the questing knights strike the Empire ones first, even if they charge in, because Empire also has counter charge, it also counts charging. Even if you roll a 1 on your counter charge, go +2 inches, counts charging, +2 initiative, so you still strike before the questing knight. The same thing happens again. So as far as I can tell, it looks like Empire Knights with their standard loadout are gonna beat questing knights in a straight up fight. And the ones with great weapons, I'll admit, they're not as good at questing knights. They probably wouldn't be able to match them in a straight up fight. They may be able to go toe to toe. And they probably wouldn't do as well against big monsters because the strength 6, probably the strength 5 would be big if you start going after proper tough things like toughness 5 or higher. But they are so much cheaper and they still get to play in the same ballpark. So to come to the inevitable conclusion, it seems like Empire Knights beat Knights Errant handily. Empire Knights can match Knights of the Realm, and Empire Knights can actually punch up into questing Knights. So does that mean that Empire Knights are better than Bretonnian ones? Probably not. I know. M. Night Shyamalan level twist here, but the thing is, we're looking at units in isolation. We're looking at units in a vacuum. We're not looking at units that are actually on the tabletop battling each other out. And are you going to have knights fighting knights? Maybe, but you're probably going to actually have knights crashing into enemy infantry or knights going after enemy monsters. Stuff like that. And we've not even taken into account things like characters and magic and all this kind of stuff. What do the Empire guns add to the equation? What does the Bretonnian trebuchets and bowmen add to the equation? What about the fact that Bretonnian men-at-arms tend to beat state troops? Looking at units in isolation is always a little bit of... It's more of a fun exercise than a serious exercise, but it is still interesting to do and it's still interesting to discuss. I think that it's quite significant that Empire Knights are able to march alongside, gallop alongside, keep up with their Bretonnian counterparts. But I think the big question is, how do these units slot into their relative armies as a whole? That's the question I want to put to you guys who've been watching this video. Do you think that in isolation, the Empire Knights got some stuff that is going for them? Or do you think that Bretonnia is just better overall? And looking at the bigger picture, how would you use your Empire Knights in your Empire army? And how would you use the Bretonnian ones in their army? I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you have, please don't forget to smash that like button. It really does help boost the video with YouTube algorithm, and it's a big support for the channel. And if you've enjoyed this kind of content, then don't forget to subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well.
For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day.
And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.